Welcome back to who have followed my career and been here for all the good and the great and the outstanding, but none of the bad stuff. You remember that Mark Mussina has been a friend of mine for the better part of 25 years, and anytime I welcome him back, I always hope for longer segments and shorter reads. But this is quite a week here, Moose. The Angelos boys got out in front of a press conference on Monday, bringing in a new statistically based system here and a decorated top-of-class guy that they've paid top-of-class money to from two organizations, a ring from St. Louis, a ring from Houston. He's only 36 years old. They've hired their own genius, Moose.
Well, yeah, I guess.
Well, it has to start somewhere when you're 115 losses, right? Right.
It's good, and it would have made no sense for them to go bring in another 60-some-year-old, quote unquote old-time baseball guy. That ship has sailed, and obviously not only what Theo Epstein started with Boston, but now you see what Houston has done, and it is the new wave. It's the modern era, and at least this seems like a step in the right direction. It really does.
Well, I mean, you're a bit of a math nerd. I know you from that side of things. Is there a little part of you that wished you had gotten into that side of baseball? I mean, I know you wanted to pitch. I know you wanted to play football. I know your brother made $100 million doing this and all that. But there was the side for you. Your brain was so into this, into sports, and the math side of where all of it is. And I know you know Eddie Epstein 20 years ago and the Sabre people that were involved in the Bill James side of things and everything that Sabre has become. I mean, if your brother was pitching right now, this is where the contracts would be for all these guys. But how many mathematicians? I mean, you went to school for math to try to be a quarterback or a baseball player. Turns out the math skills are where it's at for anybody in the sport that wants to be in the science of baseball these days, right?
It's funny. When I read that he was, I read about him and that he's 36 and he's been in baseball for 10 years. And that's the first thing I thought was, damn, I could have got in at 26, and by 36, I could have been a GM. So,
you could have just been an area scout having a good time doing what you love, because you love baseball, you love sports, your whole family does. But it's different than that now, right? Like, if you had gone into that side of things, you wouldn't be such a baseball guy. You would be much more about analytics than the actual baseball things that maybe you and I grew up with, right?
Well, it would be different. It is certainly, they look at it differently. But I mean, I still think they're good baseball guys. I think they've just kind of analyzed more, and all the sports have changed. When we look at the NFL, when we were kids, the front four on defense just stayed on the field. They didn't rotate 7 defensive linemen. They didn't have pass rush specialists that played 30% of the downs. They didn't have multiple running backs. And so I don't want to say just because they do it differently, I think they're still regular football guys. But if you'd have told, people when we were growing up that teams are going to play with no fullback. And, first we went through an era where the fullback was either a blocker or a pass receiver. They never carried the ball. Now we just don't even have one. So, it's just kind of the evolution of things. But this is certainly where baseball has evolved to. And it looks like a good move for the Orioles. But, they still got a lot of work ahead of them, obviously.
Mark Mussina is here. I'm not going to belabor the baseball thing too long because I know you want to talk some Lamar and some, what's going on with the Ravens as well as the Cowboys. And talk about things changing. I found a picture of you with a Cowboys championship shirt on with Meatloaf, but I'll save that one for another day. But you're trying to win a championship, and it's interesting this week. I'm talking to all these Oakland people about Gruden, right? He's given all this money. The franchise is going to move. Strangely enough, the people in OK were okay with supporting it. They stink. He's torn the whole thing apart. That when you do this sort of rebuild, it's so hideously unacceptable, even when you bring your own, genius back in John Gruden, that 2-8 is very, very difficult. 4-5 was very difficult around here for 2 weeks at this point. But the Lamar Jackson thing and change, right? Like whether it's in politics or baseball or the country or football, we are certainly, as Ravens fans here, going through some change in what this is going to look like moving forward. And, so far so good. Lamar Jackson won the game, but it is a weird brand of football to watch your quarterback run 27 times in a game, Moose.
I remember when I don't know if you tweeted during the game or whatever, when you said it looks more like rugby, and I thought that was a funny
It does. It looks like
quip.
rugby. Yeah.
But one of the things, as you talked about Gruden, and when he came in and he got rid of Khalil Mack and everyone ripped him, and he's getting draft picks for it, and he didn't really say much. It's been quiet on the West Coast, and they're getting drubbed, and now they're 2-8. But my suspicion is that he looked at it and said, "Listen, we can't win now, so let's trade away what we can trade away, like the Cowboys did with Herschel Walker way back when. Let's get some draft picks for, and let's see if we can win 5 years from now. Because we can't win this year, we can't win next year. So when you look at the Cowboys are the perfect example of teams that are stuck in 8-8 purgatory, and you feel like.
And by the way, a lot of people say the Ravens are that team right now. 5 years
right.
Not making the playoffs and never really being awful other than 15, right?
Are you bad enough for people to lose their job? But are the people that have the job good enough for you to get you to where you want to go? Because as you're looking at Flacco, and there's talk about Harbaugh and all this stuff. And in Dallas, it's been about Dak and Jason Garrett. And have they? It's not like they're really fireable. But at the same point, are they the guys to get you to the promised land, or do you just want to be, competitive? Because
you didn't like Tony Romo, and now you got Dak Prescott, and you see the difference between a guy who's elite and a guy who has potential, right? Like literally.
Yeah, and I think Dak's one of these guys that he showed up and he, his first impression was great, and you never get a second chance to make a first impression, and his first impression was off the charts. He was kind of Nick Foles-ish in Philadelphia the first time through, and then ever since then we found out he's really average. He's an average guy, and they keep talking about if Ezekiel Elliott runs well enough, then he won't kill you. But you don't win Super Bowls with a core. When you see what Mahomes is doing, what Breeze is doing, what Brady's done for years, and all that, you can't win in the NFL really with a quarterback who just doesn't kill you and just helps it. So that's a problem. Lamar, the question is, he's an interesting. You just can't play that way and survive in the NFL. The hits are too hard. So. Is he something? He just seems like a transition between Flacco and whoever's next, unless they're going to bring in another guy like him and have multiple, rugby-style quarter. And not that he's a rugby, that's a little harsh, but he can't run the ball 27 times a game and survive. Not in the NFL, you can't.
Well, it's not sustainable. I've said that all along. I said that the first night I saw him running around in Canton, Ohio, in that that fifth preseason game we played. It makes you squeamish. It's like watching Navy play. It's like watching a high school game, except like this is the quarterback that's going to lead you to the promised land, and he keeps getting twisted up. And more than that, in the modern era, man, they take care of the quarterbacks, right? Like all these kill shots and hook slides and Peyton Manning turtling up. We've seen a lot of different things. When you got a quarterback that runs, that wants to be elusive, that wants to DQ, that wants to shake you out of your shoes. Dude, when you get a kill shot on him or not, if you get any angle at him, you have to hit him because he's going to keep running. There are going to be sloppy hits on him that aren't meant as kill shots, but they are going at full speed because there ain't no half speed chasing Lamar Jackson down the field.
No, and it is as much as having the elusive quarterbacks can help you. And, we see what Aaron Rodgers does and what Roethlisberger's done for years. And guys who aren't necessarily runners, but guys who can still move and can still extend plays.
It's play extenders,
yes.
Sure. Yeah.
But at the end of the day, on 3rd and 5, when you need to move the chains, you've got to be able to hit guys that are open, and you've got to be able to hit guys that aren't really that open, because in the NFL, the windows just aren't that big. And you can playground it up as much as you want, but when you take the guys that are great quarterbacks, yes, some of them run well, some of them don't, but it's the accuracy and the ability to keep drives alive and to consistently throw strikes. You've got to be a pitcher. You've got to be able to throw strike after strike after strike. You're not a guy that comes in out of the bullpen that throws at 95 that runs every count to 3 and 2. You just can't miss guys that are there in this league. And so that's really the question. Of course the kid can run, and he's going to make plays with his feet, and there's going to be some highlights, and there's going to be, but it's the boring 3rd and 4s that you don't miss people that that keep drives alive and keep your defense off the field and help you win football games and ultimately help you win championships. And that's what we're going to see. The highlight reels are fun, but it is still the basics of blocking and tackling and executing. And for a quarterback, executing is when you got a guy open, you got to hit him. And that's what separates the greats from the average.
Well, I think the other part of that is defensively. You get down by 10 or 13 points. How do you get back in a game when you're running the wing T? Yeah, I don't know what else to say. I mean, unless you can throw the ball like that. And we all talk. It's a throwing league. It's a passing league. It's a passing league. Well, it wasn't here last week.
Right. And
it won't be next week.
Yeah. And there is a change-up to it. I mean, they talk about Tebow had success. And kind of when you're the only one doing it, and people don't prepare for it all that much. And when you look back again, they talk about Tebow couldn't throw and Tebow couldn't do this, and he took over a team that was like 1-4 and got them to 8-8, and they won a playoff game. So, there is an element that it can work to a degree. Just the question is, how long can it work before you get your quarterback killed, and can it really get you? I mean, are you looking to be 8-8, 9-7, and barely sneak into the playoffs, or are you looking to try to contend for a title?
Mark Mussina is here. He has been my friend for a quarter of a century, and your brother's back on the Hall of Fame ballot, right? Like this, we're not far out on that, right? Like it's like
I think January something.
God, it feels like 5 minutes ago I talked to you about last year. I mean, like it's up again, and I see the ballots and all that stuff. I mean, is this something where you clear the calendar and hope to go 1 year? Or like, I mean, I'm not being mean. I'm being honest. I mean, at some point, he's getting in. At some point, you're going to go up there with your family, and your brother's getting in the Hall of Fame. I mean, he better. I mean, I believe that.
The way he's trending, he's getting close, and it seems like, and of course, with everything else in the world, it's what's your competition, and there are fewer and fewer guys. There's no real pitchers out there that definitely need to get in, except for Mariano. There's no starting pitchers out there that are locks. Him and Schilling are kind of the top two now that are waiting. So, it seems like he's close. And Jeter's getting in. Mariano and Jeter are this year and next year, one of the two. I'm not sure which one retired first anymore. But so I don't know if that makes it better, that makes it worse, but he steadily keeps trending upward. So we would hope it would be this year. This is the first year that we've really had belief that there's a chance. Before it was kind of like, I hope he gets to this.
Yeah, you knew there was going to be like this waiting period, right? Like this purgatory that he's not a first ballot you guy, but he's still a guy, and he still is worthy. And I've been fighting this for 30 years on the radio, right? Like you get the ballot, and the first year you decide not to call him a Hall of Famer. The next year you do. It's bizarre. All of it's been very bizarre to me.
It is, and I know baseball. I just see that T.O. got in football. It took him so long to get in, and he finally got in. And it is weird. I think sometimes guys look at it and they say, "Okay, Maddox is on the ballot, and Mussina and Schilling are on the ballot, and I'm not voting for Mussina and Schilling when I'm voting for Maddox." But then when you get to the next point, you're like, "Well, there's no other pitchers out there." And when you look at, are we never putting another starting pitcher into the Hall of Fame? And if we skip Mussina and Schilling, then who's next? Sabathia's numbers are comparable, and then you get beyond that, you're going to like Verlander, and when you get beyond that, are you never put Clayton Kershaw, and are you just done putting starting pitchers in the Hall of Fame? So
starting pitchers are done winning 300 games. I mean, hell, they don't get to the fifth inning half the time now. And all of this, we're going to pitch 11 innings in October and have a bloody sock, and that's all over with, right? Like, there will be no more pitchers doing that kind of stuff ever again because the analytics won't dictate that in October.
It is crazy how the first sign of trouble in the fifth inning, they go get the guy.
Remember back when your brother was pitching to get into the Hall of Fame, he had to win Game 7 and go 14 innings and like all. Now it's just like that argument of he's got to win big games in October. That's been pretty much taken away. Other than Bumgarner and a few others, and even the guys that lost a lot of big games, like a lot of the Braves guys, they all got in. But one of the arguments was, does he win big games? Nobody won bigger games than Schilling. They're not going to let him in because he's a jerk.
Well, yeah, I mean, and Schilling's numbers, they're interesting. But he was great in October. Schilling and Smoltz were, of that era, Schilling and Smoltz were the best in October, and that's, that has certainly buoyed them. But, like obviously David Price has done poorly. Sabathia doesn't have great postseason numbers. But Randy Johnson lost 7 straight postseason decisions at one point. And Clayton Kershaw certainly had his struggles in the postseason that, he's gotten better, but it's still. So, yeah.
And Pedro Martinez never hit any of those magic numbers, with 300 wins and all of these things that used to punch your card unless your name was Sutton or Blyleven. I mean, even when you win 300, they would find ways to knock everyone. I mean, no one gets through this unscathed, especially not in the steroid era, right? Like, I mean, there are very, very few pristine Hall of Famers on the baseball side. They find a reason to not like everybody.
Yeah. I mean, the only thing against Pedro's is win total isn't that high, but he was a first ballot, so.
I'm not arguing that.
Yeah. No, but it is different, and that is one of the things of how you would change, because it happened so quickly in baseball that it went from starting pitchers were 7-inning guys to, nowadays they're 5-inning guys. And, in the postseason now we're not even starting starters sometimes. We're starting relievers and trying to get through. So it has been a change, and we'll see how it adjusts. And you almost think that the old school guys like Mike and Kurt, and I say old school, they're not all that old yet, but that the writers will look at them and say, well, these guys were at least real starting pitchers in an era that we're now trying to figure out what a real starting pitcher is, other than the super elite.
Mark Mussina is our guest. He's been my friend for a long, long time. I love arguing sports and fighting with him about all sorts of things and where we are. But the NFL's an interesting year, right? Kansas City, L.A., I mean, they have spread the wealth around. And to your point, there are a couple of pretty good teams on both sides of the ball. And I like that. I don't want everybody to be 8-8. I don't want the best team to be 10-6. I want to see some good teams. And I think we've seen a couple of teams really excel so far this year.
Yeah, and it's fun from the standpoint that, we've got some real newness because for a long time we kept looking at Brady and Manning and Breeze and then Roethlisberger got older, and there was kind of nobody, and they kept talking about, who's going to be the next new great quarterback, and Cam Newton came along but never really grabbed the consistent dominance that we were expecting, and now all of a sudden you see what Goff's done, early on, and you see what Mahomes has done early on, and obviously what Wentz did last year in Philadelphia. So it seems like we found that new wave of superstar quarterback, because Mahomes might be the MVP. So it has been fun, and to see some of these new, like Kansas City, does Andy Reid really have a shot all of a sudden? And the Rams are back from being when they were the greatest show on turf, and then they disappeared, and the Saints, who essentially I think people have kind of written off the Sean Payton, Drew Brees, bromance there. Then it was just kind of like playing out the string, and now all of a sudden that they might be the best team in football. So, and you've still got Roethlisberger, you've still got Tom Brady. So there are plenty that the playoffs are exciting. It looks like there's going to be a bad wild card team in each division or in each conference, like 8-8, 9-7.
All you can hope for is that your team, the Cowboys, and my team, the Ravens, are that bad wild card team.
And they could be. But when you look at what the Cowboys are and what the Ravens are, and then you watch some of these teams slinging around the field, and you can tell the difference. And that's where we're trying to get to, and neither of us are there yet. But,
look, if I'm playing in January, I'm not going to pitch in February about not playing in February. You know what I mean?
I get it. I get it. But when you look at the AFC and you look at Kansas City, and I left out San Diego, and I know they threw a dumper last weekend, but when you look at Kansas City and San Diego...
They don't play in San Diego anymore.
Well, you know what I mean. Yeah, they're still the Chargers to me. No, but the AFC is really, really fun. And, the NFC's got a couple, and the Rams are good, and the Saints are good. But when you look at what's all around the AFC, and when you look at, Tom Brady's on a team that may be the fourth best, the fifth best, who knows? But you still got Brady and Belichick, and that is a wide open conference, and January is going to be fun.
Yeah, go game plan and beat them one Sunday or Saturday night in January. We'll find out. Moose, always a pleasure, man. Take care of yourself up on the farm, and at some point we should go to a show in Hershey. We should see a show. I mean, the Stones are touring next year. We should do something, man.
Well, I just talked to Al McCallum the other day, and I say talked in the modern world, if we talk through text, but sometime in the dead of winter that we should get all the old cronies back together and have a night that we
eat pizza and drink beer.
Wherever we're at, yeah, we watch some college basketball game and talk about old times, and so we're working on it. I keep telling the guys every year we're going to do it. We never do it, but this year it is on the docket. We'll get it done.
Well, you don't drink beer, and McCallum doesn't eat pizza, so I have to come up with something better than that. So
no, he'll eat pizza. You just can't put cheese on it, which I'm not sure if it still counts as pizza. But
pizza.
That's. I don't know.
Any pizza without cheese is a pizza I don't want to eat.
It's not the pizza part; it's the cheese part.
They do that in Philadelphia. They have that. They do the bread and the sauce. You know about that? Do you know? It's called a tomato pie. I think it's what it's called.
It does not sound good to me.
It's
terrible.
Really it's horrible.
A life without cheese. I don't get it. But Al has done it for a long time, and he survived.
Good thing he's not in Wisconsin. You're up there in Pennsylvania. Mark Mussina is up on a hill, high on a hill in Montoursville, PA. Hey, by the way, you and your brother still doing the basketball, football thing? What do you?
Is.
You're not.
He is. I've stepped away because I got, as you will know, and as everyone else who's ever had kids know, they're growing up fast, and I got 2 girls in high school, and at this stage, I just wanted to be home more and not conflict with their stuff. Because, one of these days I'm going to wake up and they're both going to be gone. So
I have a really hard time envisioning you as a parent. I've never seen it. I see it on the internet, but and you could tell your daughters that I don't really see it. I don't understand it, but I'd love to witness it. Just for a few hours. I'd like to see what you look like when you're in charge.
It's we have some interesting times.
I love you. I miss you. We'll see you at a Def Leppard concert sometime soon. All right.
All right, man.
Tell your brother I said hello, and I'm still alive and still want him to get in the Hall of Fame, all right?
I will do that.
And they're not going to let me vote, so I have no control over it.
I understand. They don't let me vote either.
Mark Mussina, one of my all-time favorites to talk sports with. You can find him. He's out on Facebook, and I know he's on Twitter somewhere, but I'm not even sure where. And he made a movie and writes books and screenplays and raises kids and hangs out with his brother and coaches football and still likes the Cowboys. Why, I don't know. Nasty at WNST.net finds me. I am on Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn and Snapchat and Instagram and everywhere else that the internet goes in Montoursville, Pennsylvania. We're also out in the buyatoyota.com audio vault 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world on your mobile device by downloading the TuneIn radio app. I am Nestor. We are WNST.net AM 1570 and WNST Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.